Hi guys, for this week's technique of the week, I'm going to do a breakdown of my padwork videos and have a little look at some of the techniques that we use whilst doing a live pad session. Something a little bit different, so I hope you like it. Thanks.
Balance again. Jab, jab, touch hand, right, touch hand, good, and again.
So this is the touch right hand. This is a move that David Hay used to use to set up the right hand quite often. He had a devastating right hand, and we use it on the same pad. The left is used to disguise the setup and hide the setup of the right hand. It's a beautiful shot.
Jab, left on left, left on left, think about it, and again.
So this move here is called the left on left, used by George Benton. A lot of fighters today use it. Eddie Futch used to teach it a lot. So a guy like Montel Griffin used to use it a lot as well. Basically, you borrow the timing of your opponent's jab to slot your jab through the middle. Really good shot against taller opposition.
Golovkin jab. Wait, who leads? And again. Wait for it.
We call this the Golovkin jab, and it's a very similar punch to the left on left. But the difference is, as you can see from the pad, from his hand there, he's catching the jab. So Golovkin will often use this to set up his own jab and 1-2s, borrow the timing of his opponents. It's a really, again, really clever shot that reacts to your opponent's jab. Just to expand on that a little bit more, the reason why you borrow the timing of your opponent's jab is because timing is the key factor behind a good jab and a bad jab. A lot of times people say what makes a good jab. It's all about timing. That's why if you borrow the timing of your opponent by throwing at the same time, you can almost steal their timing. It's a really good tactic that a lot of shorter fighters use against good fighters at world class.
There you go, beautiful. Jab, hook, right hand. Nice. And again. And be ready to move off, yeah? Oh, there you go, balance, don't go too far away. Keep it nice and close. Jab, good. Jab, good. 1-2. Jab, right, roll. Good. Bait the jab, shoot the right, the old way. Good. And again.
Okay, so we call this bait the jab, shoot the right hand, and this is a move Floyd Mayweather uses. Basically, he shoots the jab, preempting a return jab from his opponent, and then he uses that as an opportunity to shoot the right hand over the top. It's a really good right hand setup. Here with this one, you slip right. This is the second way we do bait the jab, shoot the right hand, and this one's a little bit different in that you slip to your back left. So if you notice Dan's hips when he does a movement almost shoot forward, and the reason why he does that is to bring his head backwards. It's to draw a lean in from your opponent and make that movement less predictable. Mayweather uses this one a lot more frequently.
Nice. And again. 1-2. Good. Slip. Good. Got the jab. Good. Roll the hoop. Good. Slip. Good. Jab. Good. 1-2. Jab.
This is just a little move that I got from Adam Booth, George Groves and David Hay's old trainer. And it's just putting the pads over each other to create a single target for the 1-2. Too often I see trainers holding the pads really far apart, making two unrealistic targets. It's just an easy way to create one target.
Right. Good. Slip. Good. Roll. Jab. Block the jab. And the double jab, I want to block and slip it, yeah?
I like this next series because my boxer here doesn't get it right, he gets it wrong, which is part of, part of learning, and it makes a pad session more realistic. So he gets what I'm trying to get him to do wrong, and I just like it because, as a trainer, you have to find ways to convey what you're saying properly, and this is an important aspect of this little series of movements.
Good. Again. And then through the right side, you pivot out, Canelo style, yeah? Stop check. Away.
Okay, in this next series, my boxer gets the movement right, but I notice that he's not watching me when he does it, which is obviously an integral part of your defence. You have to have your eye on your opponent all the time. So this is just making the point that when you're padding someone or when someone's padding you, they should be constantly watching you and feeding back what mistakes you're making. I see too many videos where padmen are just doing patterns and they're not really paying attention to what their boxer's doing or what they're looking at. So it's just a little pointer for that, really.
There you go. Eyes on me when you pivot though. Do it again. There you go. Eyes on me.
When someone pays you for your time as a trainer, they are paying for your eyes and your observance. So this is where, a lot of trainers go wrong for me. Just hitting the pads isn't enough. You've got to be there as a set of eyes to try and correct balance mistakes and correct strategy mistakes, and little things like this can make a big difference.
Stroke that shoulder right up. Yeah. There you go. Lovely.
So finally here my boxer gets the movement that I'm looking for right, and it's a beautiful little double slip and pivot that Canelo uses to disengage. The pivot means that right now, if I was the opponent, if you look at me, I would have to turn to re-engage with my boxer, which is what we're looking for. It's a break in exchange.
Jab. Good. 1, 2. It's good that you get it wrong. You know what I mean? That shows how that's not perfect. Makes it look more real. Jab. Jab uppercut. And again. How long left, Dan?
30 seconds.
1, 2. Jab. Good. Jab. Jab. Good. 2, 1. 2, 1. Good. 2, 1 with a screw shot. 2, 1. So. Yeah. Good. Slip. Round. Good. Roll this. Roll this and wrap. And turn. There you go. Good. Jab. Good. 1, 2. Good. Roll and wrap again. There you go. That's it. Pull.
Time.
There you go. Good that.
So I hope you like this slightly different video, just to have a little look at sort of what's going through my mind as a coach while I'm on the pads, and also to maybe give you guys a few pointers on what you should be looking for whilst you're doing your pads if your coach isn't. I could spend all day talking about bad pad work and stuff that I see people doing on the pads, which is unrealistic. What I'd say is that pad work is an important part of boxing, but it's not everything, and a lot of times people get that wrong. They think that because they're having so much interaction with their trainer while they're on the pads, that is the best way to learn. I'd say, you go back historically, pads didn't even exist when most of the best boxers around, the likes of Joe Louis, Ali, early Duran, you didn't really see a lot of them on the pads, and I think it's because pads only came along a little bit later. I think one of the earliest pad videos I ever saw was is it Petronelli brothers who trained Hagler, and they had a pair of gloves on the wrong way around on their hands, and I can't find anything earlier than that, so I don't know whether they sort of came up with the idea originally. But the point I'm trying to make is that when old school trainers were teaching their boxers, they were doing it during sparring and during bags. And, what made a good trainer was their observance and also their communication about shape, which is, that's what you're asking for. So when you're on the pads and they're doing all these flashy combinations, sure, there's a place for that. But actually what you're looking for is proper guidance in how you should be stood, where your balance should be, what punches you should be throwing, what are realistic punches that you're going to have to deal with coming back. All these things are things that need to be considered, and that's part of what you should be doing whilst you're on the pads. Anyway, hope you like the video. If anyone wants any more feedback or me to break down any of the movements, or want to give me an opinion or anything, that's great. Just stick it below and I'll try and reply. Thanks a lot.